Thank you so much. This is a huge honor for me to be a guest of Sydney Institute. So a couple of words about myself. So my family originally from Poland and Ukraine. So the Holocaust survivors from Krakow and city of Lvov in Ukraine. So then during the Second World War, those who survived actually moved to Soviet Union. So I was born in city of Sverdlovsk, today's Yekaterinburg in Eastern Russia. So back to 1990, 2 months before the collapse of the Soviet Union, our family emigrated to Israel. So I live in Israel most of my life. So in Israel, I studied in a college, in university, and served 3 years in Israeli military. Half of my service I spent in well-known Gaza Strip, and another part in Lebanese border and West Bank. So this is another part of my background. And I studied business administration and law in Israel. And then I decided that is working in the office, at least for me, this was boring. I decided to travel the globe. So for now, visited 152 countries. So hopefully I want to get to 210. I think how many countries in the world. And now back to my story. So one of the places I visited, it was Artsakh. Artsakh in Armenia. Nagorno-Karabakh is more well-known, his name. This is a small territory, mostly Armenian Christian populated, but today it was depopulated because people just were expelled, and we'll get to this point. So at 2011, I traveled around Caucasus zone, including Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh. Just as normal tourist. So I arrived to Yerevan, capital city of Armenia. I rented a car, so I traveled around like most of the tourists. I spent 2.5 days in Nagorno-Karabakh. I just took photos and videos around and met with local people, but my visit was really short, exceptionally short. So I went back to Armenia, and so I left. And then I published a few articles in Europe and Israel, and I believe a couple of articles in Russian media about my trip, but mostly about the heritage, architectural and cultural heritage of this area, about the people, about the food, like this. Nothing political, basically, except of a couple of points. So, of course, I mentioned in brief the history of this region, that Armenians lived there for, I think, close to 1,000 years. But during the Soviet times, I think in 1930 or 1924, 25, I think. So the Armenian friends can just correct me. Stalin decided to surrender this territory to the Azerbaijan Soviet Socialist Republic. But during the Soviet times, it doesn't make sense because there weren't any real borders. It's more like states in Australia. So just administrative borders, just nothing. So people just could cross from one republic to another. There were 15 republics in one state. But after the collapse of the Soviet Union, after 1991, all the administrative borders on the Soviet Union just were converted to real borders, and sometimes just front lines. And same with Azerbaijan and Armenia. So this territory was the part, at least officially, it was the part of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Artsakh. But inside, the population was for, I think, 95% Christian Armenian. And the most of Azerbaijani population, they are Shia Muslims. So even before the collapse of the Soviet Union, I think in 1988, there were pogroms, massacre of Armenians in city of Samgait and Baku, where like 500,000 Armenians, ethnic Armenians lived, and hundreds of them were killed. It just happened during the Soviet times, even before the collapse of 2 years before the collapse of the Soviet Union. So many Armenians were killed and thousands wounded, and most of them just left Azerbaijan within a couple of years. So 500,000 Armenians actually left this country where they lived all their life. Part of them left to Russia, partly to the United States, Australia, Armenia, but part moved to Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh. But then the Azerbaijani government, I think it was the first government of independent Azerbaijan, they decided to proceed for ethnic cleansing of the area, to expel all the Christian population out of Azerbaijan. So before the collapse of the Soviet Union, there were like 25% of the Azerbaijani population Christians. I mean Armenians, Georgians, Russians, Germans, like different nations. So today, Azerbaijan is for 99.5% is Shia Muslim for today. I don't want to say anything against Muslims. I just want to mention facts. That's the point. It was the war. Armenians called for that First Karabakh War in Karabakh. So the Armenian guerrilla fighters were able to win this war, and they kept this territory under their control. And the territory, about 20% of total territory of the Republic of Azerbaijan. So this happened back to 1993. And then the Republic of Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, was actually established. 2.5 years ago, at 2020, Azerbaijani army assaulted Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh, and within 44 days, they were able to occupy most of the territory. I would say like 75% of the territory held by Armenians, and 5,000 Armenian soldiers and civilians were killed, and tens of thousands wounded, and tens of thousands became refugees to Armenia, refugees in a third time actually, after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And 3 months ago, in September, 4 months ago, at September 2023, Azerbaijanis actually attacked Artsakh one more time, and this time we were able to occupy all of the territory. And then all of the Armenians have to leave this territory. So today there are no Armenians at all in this territory. So today Azerbaijan is Armenian free. It's more like, I remember the stories of my late grandfather, who was a Holocaust survivor. He spent half a year in Auschwitz. So it was written on the entry to Auschwitz, Arbeit macht frei. And one more point, German said Judenfrei, so which means free of Jews. So Azerbaijan is committed more or less the same genocide against Armenians. So today Azerbaijan is Armenian free. And so back to my story. So 2011, as I mentioned, I visited this area, I published a few articles. So I continued my normal life. After 5 years, in December 2016, during my trip from Baltic states, from Lithuania, I think to Russia, I think so, I had a stopover in Minsk, capital of Republic of Belarus. And in the middle of the night, in my hotel, somebody knocked on the door. So I just looked in this hole in the door. I could see a masked policeman with Kalashnikov machine guns, who told me open the door immediately. So I opened the door, I entered inside. It said, "You're under arrest in request of Republic of Azerbaijan." So I asked, how come? Is it a joke or something? It's unbelievable. So they said, no, you can see the decision of Prosecutor General of Republic Belarus. Here we have it. So we're going to arrest you. So just take your belongings. We are going to a police station. And then, so I knew very well what Belarus is. This is the last dictatorship in Europe, actually. And today, Belarus took a part in the war against Ukraine, together with Russia. So I said, can I please go for a moment to the restroom? And I actually saved my life. They said, okay, go, but fast. I said, okay. So I entered inside. But unfortunately, when I took the shower before I went to bed, I forgot my cell phone in the restroom. So I was able to enter the restroom and send the message to social media and emails to my friends and to my wife that I'm under arrest because of my visit to Artsakh 5 years ago. And then my cell phone made like bzz, bzz, so they could hear. They broke the door, entered inside. They put me on the ground. And I remember that one of them, major, called somewhere and said in Russian, this bastard was able to send the message, so what to do now? So I think the original plan was just to take me from the hotel to the airport and bring me unlawfully to Azerbaijan. Just to kidnap, in a simple word, to kidnap me to Azerbaijan. Because as I find out much later from one of my subscribers who work in local Minsk International Airport in traffic control, and today he is a refugee in the United States. So he told on the very same day, the president jet, Aliyev, president of Azerbaijan, his jet just arrived to the city of Minsk with 4 armed people inside with machine guns, and were waiting for all the night long, and then left back to Azerbaijan without any passengers. So the plan was just to bring me to the airport and take me to Azerbaijan. So I spent 2 days in a central police station of the city of Minsk. I was deprived of any visits, so my wife tried to organize a meeting with my attorney. I was refused. I asked for the ambassador or somebody from Israeli embassy. I was refused as well. And Belarusian police and investigators told me, you will go to Azerbaijan. So this is the decision of our president. So just wait a couple of days. You're going to fly to Azerbaijan. So that's it. And the next day, all the media in ex-Soviet Union and Europe and Israel already published that I'm under arrest in the Republic of Belarus. So they just couldn't just kidnap me to Azerbaijan. So I spent 2 months in Belarusian jail. We tried our best to prevent my extradition. So I applied to the Belarusian court, Central Court of City of Minsk, but the court decided that they committed crimes against Azerbaijan, so that we visited Nagorno-Karabakh. So based on Azerbaijani law, this is a crime. And the second point, I called the president of Azerbaijan as dictator. So I insulted him. Based on the criminal code of Republic of Azerbaijan, any insult of the president of his family is up to 5 years sentence. So finally, I was taken to Azerbaijan. So this aircraft arrived once again, the same one exactly, the same soldiers. So I was taken to Baku. One day, actually not one day, on the same day when I was taken to Baku, I think a few hours before, it was a press conference of President Lukashenko of Belarus, and I could see this press conference because in our cell, it was just full of people. We were just like 30 people in a small cell, like 4 meters on 4 meters, really small cell, and 30 people inside. So half of us were just sleeping on the ground. So, and my cellmate just called me, come, you can see the president of Belarus talking about you. And president of Belarus was asked by some journalists, I think Russian one or Armenian, I don't remember, what about Alexander Lapshin? So the president of Belarus, he didn't expect such a kind of question. He said, where is my Minister of Internal Affairs? And one can find it in YouTube even today. And I said, I told you, send him to Azerbaijan. I don't want you to answer this kind of questions. This was really unbelievable. I could see this in my cell. So my cellmates, like local criminals, they told me, you are a miserable guy. You have something personal from our president. We are so much sorry about you. Be strong, they said. It was really horrible. So his Minister of Internal Affairs said, just by the way, so Lapshin just applied to the High Court of the Republic of Belarus. He's trying to prevent the extradition. So Lukashenko, president of Belarus, said, I don't care about the court. I'm the president here. So send him to Azerbaijan. So on the same day, he was taken to Azerbaijan without any decision of the court. So I spent 7 months in solitary confinement in Azerbaijani jail between cities of Baku and Sumgait. And this is very symbolic because those 2 cities had the biggest Armenian population before the massacre of 1988. So the biggest jail of Azerbaijan is in the same place. So from the beginning, Azerbaijani investigators told me that I must confess, I must plead guilty. I must plead guilty. And the second point, I have to say in the court that Karabakh is Azerbaijan. So I tried to explain them, look, I can say that Australia is part of Azerbaijan, but it doesn't make sense. This is just a joke. They said, no, this is because of our president. So this is kind of a gift to our Mr. President. So pictures and different portraits of President Aliyev and his father is all around, everywhere. So I just bring interesting example. From time to time, I was invited to the office of head of the jail. His name was Rashid Safarov, Colonel Rashid Safarov. And he has a huge office, really huge office. And where I was sitting in his office, I started just to count the portraits of Ilham Aliyev, of President Aliyev. There were 44 portraits of President Aliyev, 44. And plus 2 statues of Ilham Aliyev. So I asked him, do you really need so many faces of your president? He said, sure. What was really interesting, his deputy head of the jail, his name was Yashar Magiramov. In his office, there are much less portraits of Ilham Aliyev, just 35. Yeah. This is a real dictatorship, more like North Korea or something. So I refused to cooperate with them. I said I'm not the United Nations to decide on the future of this region. I'm not going to plead guilty because I'm not guilty. This is my job as a journalist to travel around the globe and to provide the information from different countries. And the second point, so I said, what's going now in here, it's absolutely unlawful because at the first month, I was deprived from my attorney, from any meetings with my family members, any meetings with the Red Cross. So I was just alone. So all these conversations were just in front of Azerbaijani investigators. So I said, what you're asking from me to plead guilty and to say Karabakh is Azerbaijan, first of all, this is unlawful. And the second point, I don't want to talk to you without my attorney. So they said, look, you have 2 options. First of all, you will be sexually raped. And the second option, you will cooperate with us. So just 2 options. In case you are going to cooperate with us, we believe that our Mr. President will just pardon you, will go home. So I'm not Ramba. Of course I'm not Ramba. I said, okay, I'm ready okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to say Azerbaijan is, Karabakh is Azerbaijan, Brazil is Azerbaijan, Canada is Azerbaijan, okay. So they said, this is not funny. So Karabakh is enough, they said. So it's really, it sounds like a joke. This is a terrible joke, actually. And then during the judgment, I promised them to plead guilty and promised them to say Karabakh in Azerbaijan. But for some reason, I don't know why, when I arrived to the courthouse, so I said, I'm not guilty, and Karabakh is not Azerbaijan. Not exactly. I said, I'm not the one who goes to decide of the future of Karabakh, because I am not Armenian, I'm not Azerbaijani, I don't work in the United Nations, so leave me alone, please. So then I received a sentence of 3.5 years in prison. I was taken back to my solitary confinement, and a few days after the final judgment, I was assaulted in my cell by 4 masked men. So they promised, I have 2 options, or cooperate, or I will be beaten or raped. So I was assaulted 4 masked men. They entered inside in the middle of the night, and I had the light 24 hours per day in my cell. I didn't have any windows, but I have light 24 hours per day. They entered inside. I was sleeping, actually. I woke up because I felt I'm dying, because 3 of them kept my hands and my legs, and one of them just jumped with the legs to my chest and started to strangle me like this with the fingers. And then they put a pillow or something on my face, so I couldn't say anything. So after about maybe 10-15 seconds, I lost my consciousness, and I don't remember anything. So the next time I opened my eyes, this happened after 4 days in the intensive care unit of local hospital. I had a broken hand, broken fingers, broken jaw, broken teeth. But the worst was I felt like I didn't feel the left part of my body, more or less, like after the stroke, because of the brain injury. I had a brain injury, like somewhere here. So for about half a year, I couldn't walk normally. I could walk like those people with stroke. Now I'm okay for 99%, thanks to God. So I was told by Azerbaijani officials who just came to my room in the hospital that I tried to commit suicide, but they saved my life. And because of my good behavior, I received pardon from the president of Azerbaijan. When I will be able to fly to Israel, I will be expelled to Israel. So they said, you are lucky. So actually, my only question, I couldn't talk because I have broken jaw. So I have some of metallic construction inside my here to keep my jaw. I couldn't talk and I couldn't use my left hand, but I could write with my right hand. So I just asked the question: was I raped? They said no. You're lucky. So I tried to keep a sense of humor. So then I was taken to Israel, where I spent like 2 more weeks in Israeli hospital. Then I was released, and immediately I applied to European Court of Human Rights against the Republic of Azerbaijan, and on 20th of May 2021, I won the case, and Azerbaijan was found guilty by the European Court in illegal arrest, torture, and attempted murder. And I was awarded with compensation, but Azerbaijan refused to comply with the decision, so refused to pay the compensation. I haven't received even $1. And then I applied to the Committee of Human Rights of the United Nations with the same complaint, and I won once again. And Azerbaijan was found guilty with the same things. And one very important sentence was in decision of with the Committee of Human Rights of the United Nations, that any visit of any individual, any politician, any journalist to any disputed area cannot be considered as a crime. So any arrest, there is no base for any arrest or extradition in that case. This is a very important point. So for today, as already mentioned, in both cases, Azerbaijan refused to comply with the decisions, haven't received any compensation. And basically, this shows this country, what Azerbaijan is. So a country that doesn't care about the decisions of the court and the United Nations. So basically, this is my story in brief.
So now we go to questions and discussions. So first of all, just tell us briefly what it's like to be in solitary confinement. Most of this room hasn't been there, you know.
Thanks to God.
Yes. And then the connection with, I mean, you spoke about Belarus, and as you know, it's a close ally or controlled by Russia. So how do you see Russia's involvement in this? Just a couple of quick points, then we'll go to other questions.
So the first question about the solitary confinement. So when I was in a Belarusian jail before the extradition, in a small room with a lot of people inside, with different criminals and different drug addicted, so I felt very unsafe and very uncomfortable. So I was just dreaming about to be alone. But when I really spent 7 months in a solitary confinement, this was a horrible experience. Because small cell, 3 on 3 meters, toilet is a hole in the concrete, water 1 time in the morning, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening, and no hot water at all. So once per 7 or 10 days, I was taken to the shower for about 5 minutes, and then I have to wash my clothes. Food is bad, really bad food. So in the morning is a porridge. Then water soup. So I created this soup, water soup, because there were just water, hot water, and small pieces of cabbages and potatoes inside. I call for that water soup. So, and in the evening, 2 options. Once again, porridge or mashed potatoes with the small parts of insects inside, which means meat. So after about 2 or 3 months in such kind of conditions, so people just start to feel sick. So normally I feel okay, but after about 2 months in such conditions, plus 2 months in a Belarusian jail with the same food, same conditions, so I felt different pains. I start to lose hair. I start to lose my teeth. Different skin, skin, not diseases, but different, you know. And because I couldn't take a shower, once again, I have a number of infections inside, so I had to deal with that after I was released in Israel. And all the people the same. So jail is a terrible place, actually. So when we think about the jail, we think about small cell, that's it. But that is not all. The worst punishment is, I haven't any television, no newspapers, no books, just nothing, and no windows. So for example, I didn't know what time it is. So for example, if I received porridge, this means breakfast. Water soup means afternoon, more or less. So dinner means mashed potatoes. But from time to time, they changed the food. So, for example, I was sleeping, and I didn't have the watch. I was sleeping, and then they said, dinner is coming. So how come? But I'm sleeping, so I was thinking it's in the middle of the night. I said, no, it's evening time. Take a mashed potatoes. So after about a couple of weeks of such a schedule, so I felt really bad emotionally and psychologically. So start to think about suicide. And this is kind of like a sickness. So I never had any psychological depressions in my life. So as all of us, I had bad mood from time to time. But I could not, I didn't have such experience of real psychological troubles. So I couldn't sleep normally. I couldn't stop thinking about suicide. This was like, I don't know, like in the movie of, with Freddy Krueger. Do you remember this horror movie, Freddy Krueger? This horror movie from childhood. So I couldn't sleep. When I was sleeping, I had horrible dreams. And then I could hear that other not cellmates, but other prisoners of different cells, they were just screaming, Allahu Akbar, we will kill you, we will find your family. So prison is bad. Avoid it, if possible. So I was surprised, but Russian Federation actually opposed my extradition from Belarus to Azerbaijan, in spite of the fact that both Russia and Belarus, this is the same organization, means Commonwealth of the independent states, yeah. But based on the constitution of Russia and Belarus, they have the common constitution. They were prohibited to extradite Russian citizens from Belarus or Russia to the third country. So when President Lukashenko decided to extradite me to Azerbaijan, it's kind of a slap on the face of Putin. So Russia supported me not because of my personality, but because of this move of President Lukashenko of Belarus. So Putin himself told in press conference to call for my immediate release. And Minister of Foreign Affairs Lavrov said the same. And I couldn't believe this, because all of my life I criticized Putin regime. I think it was the first who actually received such a kind of support from Russian Federation. And I feel, on one side, I feel confused, really confused, because we left Russia not for fun, because we didn't like it. And now they supported me. And Israel, and Israeli side actually, in my own opinion, maybe I'm mistaken, they just did nothing.
Thank you. Were you still a Russian citizen when Putin was defending you? And the second issue is, how do you see the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan now, after ethnic cleansing of Nagorno-Karabakh? Is it finished, or we expect further war there?
First of all, when we left Soviet Union, before the collapse of the Soviet Union, so Russia as an independent state was declared on 1991, I think. So a few months before we immigrated. So in 1992 or 93, I applied to Russian embassy in Tel Aviv, and I received one more time Russian citizenship based on my birth certificate. So then it was something different. So the president of Russia was then Gorbachev, then Boris Yeltsin. So it was Russian democracy. So all of us believed in new Russia. But unfortunately, after coming of Putin, everything has changed. So I kept my Russian passport. So even today, so I said to myself, many friends of mine, especially those who live abroad in States, in Israel, elsewhere, they just abandoned the Russian passport. So I said, never. So I was born in that country. So Putin regime will not last for long. So Turgenev and Pushkin, those people, they're not guilty because of this regime. And the same, I have a number of friends from Iran who kept the Iranian passport. They said the Ayatollah regime will end sometime, and we're still Iranians. So I feel the same. So I criticized Russia, I criticized Putin, but I will keep my Russian passport, why not? I have an Ukrainian passport as well, because my family originally from Ukraine. And both countries in war now. Yeah. No, of course this is not end. It will continue, of course, this will continue, because
The conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia will continue.
Yeah, I think it will continue, because totalitarian Azerbaijani government, they need kind of excuse to continue the dictatorship. So they used the Armenian issue as a basement for corruption, for illegal keeping this regime in power. So I think a week ago, there were elections in Azerbaijan. And President Aliyev won the election. He received, I think, 93.9% of the people voted for him. So it's more like Kim Jong-un in North Korea. Kim Jong-un, yeah, Kim Jong-un, North Korea. And this is really funny. No.
There's a question down the back. Can you pass that along?
Thank you. We were in the Caucasus in about 2017, 2018, and we were in Azerbaijan and we had a tour, and the tour guide gave us at least 20 to 30-minute lecture on the genocide of the Azeris by the Armenians. Could you comment on that, please?
Oh, I know such a kind of stories. When I was imprisoned in Azerbaijan, I've heard a lot of such kind of stories. For example, I was told by the Azerbaijani investigators that there is no such a nation, Armenians, not at all. So this is gypsy tribes who came from India, from city of Hyderabad in India. So I asked, why Hyderabad? Well, not from Delhi or Mumbai, why Hyderabad? They said, because Hai means Armenian in Armenian language, Hai. So I said, no way. And I visited India many times. I said, no, you're wrong, guys. Because Hyderabad, it's a name of saint in Islam, Haidar. Not because of Hai, but Haidar. So I said, you say that you're Shia Muslims. How come? Have you ever read Quran? That's unbelievable. So I heard different horrible stories that in a city, small village of Khojaly, Armenians killed like tens of thousands innocent Azerbaijanis. And furthermore, one of them said, the Armenian soldiers just opened the stomach of a pregnant woman and ate the children inside. So I said, have you seen this? He said, no, but my friend, could you bring your friend? I want to talk to him. No, he's already dead. So different, really, this is even not a joke. It's more like my grandfather told me about the German Nazis, what they told about Jews. More or less the same. The Jews prepared the kosher food from the blood of Christians. So more or less the same I've heard about Armenians. So more or less the same stories. Yeah.
So tell us about yourself. You seem to travel the world arguing with people. You must be very courageous or very stupid, or both.
Yeah.
So that's what you do. I mean, you could easily say nothing and get away.
I cannot get away because this is my life. So I never expected to fight with the Republic of Azerbaijan because I have nothing to do with both Armenia and Azerbaijan. I never lived. I have no relative in both countries. It's more like for you, just imagine you have to fight with Zimbabwe. Why Zimbabwe? So the same for me, but I just can't stop because it's the question of personal beliefs and the second, human rights. And now I have a lot of friends of mine of Armenian origin who were killed in the war, 44 days war in Nagorno-Karabakh, were killed. And I'm persecuted myself by Azerbaijan, so I cannot just stop it. Even I stop it, they will not stop to prosecute me. So I'm trying to keep my publicity on a high level because my publicity is my safety.
So, hang on, here we go.
Yes, as a journalist, and someone who's been to Azerbaijan and Armenia, why do you think there was complete and absolute silence about what was happening in Azerbaijan for about 10 months when it was under blockade? Not even medicine could go in, and afterwards with the ethnic cleansing, there was hardly anything in the media. What do you ascribe it to?
There's a very simple word, caviar diplomacy. I mean, bribes. So Azerbaijanis invested billions of US dollars for bribing European and American officials. I believe in Australia as well. I can bring my own examples. So I come to Europe at least twice a month. I'm flying to Europe for different events and interviews and events. So at least half of my events, half of my interviews were cancelled in the very last moment because of the bribes. So the last time this happened exactly 1 month ago. So I had to fly to Brussels in Belgium and to talk to the, I will not mention this media, but one of the biggest media in Belgium. And we agreed on the interview. And actually I appeared in the interview and I told all the story of Nagorno-Karabakh and blockade, etc., etc. And then they cancelled. And after about 2 weeks, I received the message from one of the journalists. He said, I'm so much sorry, but our editor-in-chief received like 20,000 euros. Support. This is not a bribe. This is grant from Azerbaijani Haidarali Foundation. But he was asked to cancel this interview and not to upload it. That's it.
Do you think there was anything that Armenia should have done or could have done in terms of getting its story out into the media? And was there any failure on their part? I know it's a controversial question.
This is very controversial because there are 2 points of view. The first one, Armenia, unfortunately, very poor and weak country, at least for today. So there is no chance to win the war once again with Azerbaijan, because then the first Karabakh war was different. So Soviet Union collapsed. The Republic of Azerbaijan was established the year before, so it was a house around, so they were able to win, but not today, because Azerbaijan is purchased for tens of billions of dollars in Israeli and European and Russian weapons, and Azerbaijan is like 5 times bigger than Armenia, and no chance basically. And another side of the question is that Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh, based on the international law, unfortunately, this is part of Azerbaijan. So when I talk with Armenian officials, I ask them many times. So all of us, we know that this is ancient Armenian territory, but how come that for 30 years you haven't been able to recognize this territory as a part of Armenia or as an independent state? How come? So you ask the international community to recognize the independence of Artsakh, but yourself refuse to recognize the independence. So I brought the example of Israel. So I do not support Israel in many fields, in spite of the fact I spent 3 years in Israeli military in occupied territories. So, but still, Israel declared Jerusalem as a part of Israel. And after 60 years, after the Six-Day War, the United States decided to recognize Jerusalem as a part of Israel. And the same with Golan Heights, occupied from Syria. So if Armenia was able from the beginning to call this territory as integral part of Armenia, it could be different. But once again, we cannot compare, the resources of Armenia and Azerbaijan.
There's a question there. Naomi?
What do you think was the motivation of Lukashenko to support the extradition?
Money. This is for sure. Because, about my extradition. So why Lukashenko decided to extradite me to Azerbaijan? Just money. So after it was released, I received a lot of information from different sources, from Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs, from Armenian diplomats, from ex-Russian intelligence officers who now live in Europe. And today, I know for sure, Lukashenko have to pay the debt for a Russian company called Gazprom, that's the biggest supplier of petrol and gas, biggest Russian supplier of petrol and gas, the debt of $2 billion. So he was looking for some ways to go around. And then he has received a warrant for arrest. So in his opinion, it was a good way to try to do something with this debt of Gazprom. So my price is $2 billion. So, no, I'm joking. The situation was a little bit different. So in his press conference, I believe it should be with translation to English, but at least in Russian, Lukashenko openly said in press conference, he didn't talk about $2 billion, but he said, I tried to talk with Israelis, Russian and Azerbaijanis, and they said, I have a little bit troubles in our economy, so please decide what to do with this guy. It sounds controversial. And then I talked with ex-Russian ambassador to Minsk, who today he is just retired, and he told me about $2 billion. So Azerbaijan was able to provide credit for $2 billion against me. I'm not sure the Belarusians paid this credit. I'm not sure. But at least they received this.
So what's with Armenia? I mean, we know about 1915 and the genocide, and now there's Armenia's problem that it's small and Christian, essentially, in a, I think it's Orthodox, isn't it? Orthodox Christian, surrounded by people who don't like it much. I mean, is that it?
Yeah. Sorry?
What role was Georgia playing in all this?
It's a question about Georgia.
The Republic of Georgia?
Yeah.
Republic of Georgia, they have a very good strategical position. So they, both Armenia and Azerbaijan depended on Georgia because the pipeline Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan, which brings the petrol and gas from Russia, from Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, goes through Georgian territory to Turkey. By the way, I have to mention a very important point. Today, we have the war in Ukraine, but Azerbaijan took a part in this war because Russians just go around the sanctions, so they bypass the sanctions by using this pipeline, Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan. So Russian petrol goes to Baku and then to Turkey. And Europeans just play the game, so they didn't know. There are a lot of sanctions against Russian Federation, but no sanctions against Azerbaijan. So like 80% of Russian petrol goes through Azerbaijan, their own sanctions.
And that into the forces invading Ukraine, right?
Yes.
So Azerbaijan's a big player in this.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're getting to the end. Does anyone else... yes, there's Naomi.
Thank you. Just a question. You mentioned, I think I had the impression you did receive little support from Israel?
Yeah, very little support. I would say no support. Because from the beginning, when I was first allowed to meet with Israeli diplomat, it was Consul General of Israel to Azerbaijan. This happened, I think, after 2 months after I was the president in Azerbaijan after the expedition. And she said, first of all, I'm so much sorry about your story. And the second point, she said, you're a troublemaker because Azerbaijan is our ally. She said, I just searched around about all your articles. So you mentioned yourself that you have troubles with Iran. So we need Azerbaijani territory in case of the war with Iran. So you yourself, you published that a lot of Israeli intelligence work in Azerbaijan against Iran. She said everything is true. So today, you're here in Azerbaijan in jail. Why? Because you support Armenians. She said, what, don't you have enough troubles with Palestinian case? Why do you need Karabakh? So she said, you're in a trouble. Because she said, well, we cannot just openly support you. Because we need them. I mean, Azerbaijanis, we need them. We cannot just ruin our relations with Ilham Aliyev. She said, I know very well this is dictatorship, but we don't care. We have problem with Iran. So she said, of course, we will try different ways to take you home, but she said, do not expect too much efforts from our side. And when I was pardoned and expelled to Israel, so Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs, they didn't know. So after about 4 days, I was already in Israeli hospital. Israeli Foreign Minister commented that they're just in the middle of procedures of my extradition back to Israel. So Israeli journalist said, but he's already here 4 days. She said, oh, perfect, so huge success. Yeah. And one more point. So my family, my wife originally from the Republic of Moldova. So when I was under arrest, I was in the middle of naturalization procedure in order to get Israeli citizenship. So because I was arrested, it was stopped in the middle. She had to come to immigration authorities with our daughter, who then she was 2 years old, and our daughter, she is Israeli citizen, she was born in Israel. But my wife was said by the officer, immigration officer, he said, where is your husband? He said, in Azerbaijani jail. And he showed the newspapers. You can see his pictures, all of the Israeli newspapers. He said, I know this face, but I don't care. He said, based on the rules, you have to come together. I don't care about crimes of your husband. I don't care. And she was given 30 days to leave the country. Together with our daughter, who is Israeli citizen. So both of them were expelled from Israel. This is really unbelievable. Could you believe that Australian citizen can be expelled from Australia? And child, 2 years old. So I didn't know about that. So when I was released and I spent some time in a hospital in Israel, I was able to communicate with the attorneys. So we canceled this decision of the immigration authorities through the court. And she was able to come back with our daughter. And then I was invited to Israeli, more or less, intelligence, Shin Bet, calls Israel Shin Bet, Israel intelligence. And they told me, we have friendly advice. Please stop everything you do against Azerbaijan, because this is against our national interest. They said both Armenians and Russians and who else, they have their own interest. And we're the only country who actually supported you. I said, I don't believe you guys. You didn't support me. So they said, we heard a little bit that your wife experienced some troubles with citizenship or something. I said, yes, I believe because of you. They said, depends on you. If you are going to stop it, just try to apply once again for Israeli passport, and maybe she will receive your passport. Maybe. Try your luck. And basically I said, no way. I already applied to the European Court. I will not stop. I said I spent 9 months in jail. I was almost killed. And now you're trying to blackmail me or something with the passport. Don't care about the Israeli passport. They will survive without Israeli passport. There are too many countries in the world much better. So just leave me alone. So I won the case in the European Court, in the United Nations. And my wife still without Israeli passport, without work permit, without health insurance. But we'll continue our life.
But, I mean, as you know, Israel doesn't have many friends, so they're trying to survive too. Can I just wind up with just a brief reflection? I know you're mainly a travel writer.
Yeah.
You get into a lot of trouble. But as someone who was born in Ukraine when it was part of the old Soviet Union, and someone who was a Russian citizen, how do you see what's going on in that part of the world, briefly, apart from the food?
You mean Russia and Ukraine?
Yeah.
At least for me, this is terrible, because I have both passports, first of all, parts of my family in both countries, in Ukraine and Russia, and few of my family members actually soldiers in this war on both sides, and all of them on my WhatsApp. This is unbelievable. In my WhatsApp application. So once we were just one family, and after the war started, something happened. So family was absolutely destroyed. So people do not communicate with each other. So part of my family who live in Russia, I am talking about Jews. They're not Russians or Ukrainians, they're Jews. They support Putin, and those who live in Ukraine support Ukraine, of course. And I'm the only one who tried to connect between them, because this is crazy. So hopefully the war will end sometime. But because of Azerbaijan, back to Azerbaijan, and because of Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, it's going to take years.
Many thanks.
Thank you so much.
Well, many thanks to Alexander Lapskin, who's a very brave man and controversial one. So he had some good stories to tell us tonight in a very important area of the world. And those of us at the Sydney Institute, Anne and myself and others, have always had a lot of interest in Armenia, and we heard from that tonight. So I also should say thanks to the Armenian National Committee of Australia for making this possible, and well done to our speaker, and good luck.